Hey guys, GC with Big Game Real Estate, and today we're talking cannabis. Cannabis is one of the hottest things in, well, really everywhere, but also one of the hottest things in commercial real estate right now because of the money that's involved. So what if you buy a building and you're getting asked to put a cannabis location in there, whether that's a dispensary, a manufacturing place, or both? We're going to chat a little today. And I'm also going to do an interview with a cannabis specialist that I know that I'm working with. We'll link up with him for a longer, probably about an hour. But anyway, so let's talk cannabis. So let's start at the beginning. When cannabis first started getting legalized, it was very, very difficult for landlords to lease to a dispensary. And the reason is it is a federally illegal drug, but it is legal at the state level for many states. That creates a problem if you have a federal mortgage. You have a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. Okay, you have a traditional lending institution that has a loan in the building. In the clause, it says if you tenant anyone that sells illegal drugs, we can actually call the mortgage. So the banks could actually reach out to you and say, hey, look, you got a cannabis tenant in there. You owe us $4 million, for your shopping center. We don't want to be involved. We can't have a tenant that sells illegal drugs. Now that has changed. There are banks, specific banks, not Fannie Freddie, but there are still banks that will not do it because it is a federally illegal drug. However, there are banks that are lending on cannabis. There are now groups that have come out that will specifically lend for cannabis. A lot of the times they're your smaller local banks. So take a look in. You can do it. What was the other thing? The other thing is, as landlords, again, you're out, you're buying a building, you're investing, maybe you have some vacancy, you want to fill it, you get approached by someone. Oftentimes you have to have licenses, right? There's a license that's given from, I'm not quite sure if it's the county or the state, but there's only a certain number of licenses that each town will allow. And when it first came out, landlords had to take their property off the market for an unknown amount of time, maybe a year, and they had to not receive rent or work something out where they were getting some type of rent, but their property was tied up. Again, that process, although there still is a process for tenants they have to have a site first before they can apply for the license. So you have to understand that even if someone has 10 locations, the chances may be good for them to get an approval, but they have to identify a site first before they apply for the license. So there's going to be some lead time where you're going to have to work out with a potential tenant. Hey, or if you're selling your building, what does that look like? Okay. And I would try to get something out of them. Now, what does cannabis pay? Cannabis pays a very, very high rent. They can afford to do so. They're making a lot of money, and that's what makes the use really, really attractive. What types of buildings do they look for? Again, that's going to depend if they're just a dispensary or a dispensary in a manufacturing hub. They have made some interesting uses out of some older creative buildings that maybe would not have lended themselves anymore to a warehouse or to a retail location. They can get creative. A big thing for them is obviously security, right? They do have a drug in there, and they're moving a lot of money. So if it's a freestanding building, they're obviously going to secure it, probably similar to where you see a firearm secured, not bollocks, but stuff in front so you can't drive through the building, so on and so forth. Definitely safes and stuff. That's not your concern. When you are potentially leasing to a cannabis tenant, so again, this whole video is based on if you own a property and you're being approached by someone who wants to do a dispensary or a cannabis manufacturer, depending on if you have a retail location or maybe an industrial location or a large retail location where they can do both. You have to look at the town. The town has certain areas within the town that they will allow that, okay? And obviously, you can't be next to a school. If you have a shopping center, going back to restrictions, right? Daycare is not going to allow you to have a cannabis place. I don't know the laws on if you can have a firearms store or not. I'm not too sure. I believe alcohol is totally okay. I believe that could vary by state and county, so make sure you check that. But the cannabis use is really interesting. There's a lot of guys doing it. What I would suggest, if I was coaching you, or I was the landlord and you get approached by someone who's doing cannabis, whether it's the person, the operator, or maybe there's a broker because now you're the owner, find out as much as you can, right? This is definitely an area where you want to deal with someone. There's enough people now who have licenses. There's enough people now who have dispensaries. you want to deal with an experienced operator. How many locations do you have? How long have you been open? What is the background of the operators? Okay, a lot of these guys come out of Colorado. They have extensive background in operating things like this. That's what you want to see if you're going to tie your property up, and maybe you have to wait 6 months for them to, apply through the town and get a license. You also want to see what their experience in town is. Where are they from? What attorney have they hired? Do they have any political connections? Like, why are they confident that they are going to get this license? Because there's still a lot of people that are applying for licenses. So again, if you're going to tie your property up, you want to better your chances. I think cannabis is a really interesting topic. It's definitely making a lot of people money, and landlords are definitely capitalizing. Your $20 a square foot retail location can potentially be leased to a cannabis location for $30 or $35 if it's good enough. So again, you can increase the income on just one space tremendously. And I do believe cannabis is here to stay. I think it will, further be legalized, but that's a conversation for another video. That's nothing to do with real estate. It's my personal opinion, by the way. It's not fact. All right, just my personal opinion. But again, guys, if you have a freestanding building and you're looking to tenant it and you have not considered cannabis, you may want to look into that. You may want to find out who those cannabis operators are. You may want to reach out to local brokers. Give it a test the waters. Big Game Real Estate. See you guys in the next one.